everyone, and welcome back to Casual Climbers, the podcast by and for beginning hikers and those who may not quite be physically ready to tackle the Appalachian Trail. I'm your host, Donna Padrick, and alongside me is my husband and adventure buddy, Roy.
Hey, Donna.
Hi, Roy.
Hey, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, we took a little break. I've got some energy today.
Do you? That's great.
Yeah.
So in this podcast, Donna, as you know, because you and I do it together,
Mm-hmm.
we provide the listeners with information, tips, and tricks on how to get into hiking here in the Blue Ridge area. We will also cover some of the hundreds of trails in the various parks and areas of the region and maybe entertain them a little along the way.
Yeah, hopefully.
So you and I are both middle-aged, maybe not in the exact best shape.
Definitely not in the best shape, hikers.
That's right. But we do love the outdoors.
We do.
And we want to share our experiences with the listener.
We love the outdoors, but not the bugs.
We'll talk a little bit about the bugs today.
Yeah.
In this week's episode, we discuss a very interesting trail in the Pisgah National Forest, the Pink Beds Loop Trail. We'll also have a fun fact segment about the birth of forestry service here in the United States, and we'll talk about the Cradle of Forestry Discovery Center right next to the Pink Beds Loop Trail. What do you say, Donna? Let's get into it.
Okay, let's go.
So here's the Pink Beds Loop Trail by the numbers. It's 5.36 miles in a loop, and the time it took Donna and I to do this was 3 hours and 2 minutes. But of that, 2 hours and 10 minutes were moving time. The lowest point is 3,175 feet, and the highest point is 3,275 feet. So as you can see, very little elevation change happening on this trail. And the friendliness of the trail, a lot of it is very easy to make your way through, but there is also a lot of rocky and rooty parts and stream crossings.
Yes. Yes. It's definitely not something that you'd take a wheelchair through or anything like that. It's not like that. But yeah, the elevation change not being much at all makes it doable for the 5 miles of it.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and just get right into it, right? The one most remarkable thing for me about this particular trail is how biodiverse the trail is.
Yes.
It's incredibly biodiverse. We must have gone through in the 5.5 miles, less than 5.5 miles, 2 or 3 ecosystems.
It felt that way. And what's strange about that is that there wasn't that much elevation change, and yet there was this feeling like you're walking along and you're walking on dirt, then you're walking on a big rock, and then you're walking on quartz rocks, and then you're walking and there's pine needles on the ground. So it's very different.
It is different. And so you start out on the trail and it's just a typical mountain forest trail, right? Nothing special about it. Then you cross over a creek and then the diversity starts to happen. You're immediately in a dense thicket of mountain laurel canopy.
Right.
And you and I remarked on this yesterday when we feel like we're in Middle Earth.
Right.
Because it's such a different feeling. It's so nice. Now, unfortunately, the mountain laurels were not fully in bloom up here.
Right.
There were trees. Most of the trees had little tiny flower budlets. Some of them had full flowers on them. But for the most part, they weren't quite in bloom. And there were no rhododendrons in bloom.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Yes, but it was still beautiful. And even without a blue sky day,
it was an overcast day.
It was an overcast.
Yeah.
So one of the benefits to having to hiking on an overcast day, besides it maybe being a little bit cooler, is that if there's rain predicted, maybe you'll have the trail a little bit more to yourself. And I think that might have happened for us yesterday.
We ran into what? 2 other sets of people?
Yes,
the whole trail.
Not very many. For a 5 mile hike, it was amazing. And right off the Blue Ridge Parkway too, which is popular.
Yeah, so the Blue Ridge Parkway, you have to get off on Highway 236 from the Blue Ridge Parkway to get to it, but this is one of the main access roads to get to the Blue Ridge Parkway from the Brevard, North Carolina area.
Yes.
And it's also a very popular road because there is the Cradle of Forestry Discovery Center, which we're going to talk about, but there's also Looking Glass Falls, Sliding Rock, And again, the access to the Blue Ridge Parkway. So there's lots of traffic on this road, and there was a lot of traffic on it yesterday. But you're right;
It's a popular area, and we had it pretty much to ourselves yesterday.
Yeah, we did. We ran into one single runner, and then 2 other couples.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
I don't think we saw any animals, any dogs or anything. Yesterday.
We didn't. And it's kind of interesting too, because this parking area is pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably, what would you say, 30 spots?
Yes.
Something like that. And it's also a popular picnic area, because at the parking area to the trailhead, there's a big open area with picnic tables and grills and stuff like that you could go and sit at. It's a pretty popular area. And yeah, like Donna said, that very few people yesterday. Now, this was a Friday, but it was late morning. We got there at 10:30.
Yeah, I slept in a bit.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, and so the diversity that I was talking about, it's really incredible. As you get through this first little dense thicket of mountain laurels, then it opens up into a prairie with a tree in the middle of the prairie.
Right.
And then it turns and it goes into like a forest wetlands where there's, ferns and deep bushes. We saw tons of flowering plants and trees yesterday.
Yes. I was looking for the Cherokee Trail trees, and I didn't see any yesterday. Did you see any?
I didn't see any, no. Yeah. But it was a lot of times it was just hard to see past the thicket of mountain laurels.
Yes,
in there. Yeah, if you're looking for a trail that has amazing vistas or waterfalls, this is not the trail for you.
I mean, it had a running stream with
the stream runs through a good part of it.
Yes,
at least half. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, it doesn't take much for me in my world to qualify as a waterfall. If it drops a foot, I call it a waterfall.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
But most people are not like that. So I just get tickled about running water. Just the sound of it and just the feel of the air around running water. I don't know. There's just something about water.
I absolutely love it too. And I didn't bring my full water bladder. I just brought my one filtered water bottle, because I knew that there was streams all along the way, and man, that water is so delicious. It's so cold and so delicious.
Yeah.
But we saw, probably the most blackberry bushes.
Oh, yes.
That we had seen on any trail that we've been on.
It had all the flowers on it that I guess all the flowers are going to turn into blackberries.
Into berries.
Yes.
So we may need to go back and go blackberry picking on this trail.
I kind of wonder if the wildlife is going to be excited about the blackberry. Like maybe bears are going to be excited about the blackberry.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
Certainly raccoons and squirrels are
for
going to love
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so. You and I remarked when we were doing this trail, there's nothing special about the trail itself. Like, there's nothing challenging about it, like going to Pinnacle Falls, or there's nothing, you're not going to see great mountain views or anything like that. But
you don't get the waterfalls and water views that you get at Table Rock State Park.
Yeah. But man, it's just there's so much interesting stuff to look at on this trail.
Yes.
So much interesting stuff. And one of the things I really loved about it, because Highway 236 is so busy, you constantly hear cars and motorcycles going on that road. But as you get in a mile into the trail, all you hear is the wind whistling through the
It was a little windy yesterday.
It was a little windy, but man, I always love it when I'm out on a trail, because you and I go out on these trails to escape.
Yes, to get away.
That
I want to go somewhere where there is no telephone wires, no
Didn't
power
see a
lines.
single one on this.
Yes, I love that.
Not a single one. And so we were out there and it was just quiet, and we heard birds and we heard squirrels rustling around and we heard the wind going through. And every once in a while, when the wind would shift, you'd get this amazing breeze filled with floral scents in the air.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out what those floral scents were, because whenever we came up on a flowering bush or tree or whatever, we would smell the flowers and say, that smells really good, but that's not what it is. So I don't know, maybe it was blueberry bushes.
I guess it could have been. I don't know. I smelled them. I stick my nose in every single one.
Yes.
I didn't smell what we were smelling. It was almost like there was maybe jasmine or lavender somewhere.
It could have been a combination of something too.
Very well could have been.
Yeah.
The first mile, I was thinking to myself, and I didn't say this to you, I was thinking, this is kind of a boring trail.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, that's something I've never seen on a trail before.
Yes.
And then it goes around a curve and you're like, this is completely different than the last 50 yards.
So I want to say that there's this cross through. You can hike, what is it, 2 miles in and then cross through and then hike, or not even 2 miles in.
It's called the Pink Bed Short Loop. So you get about a mile in.
And then you can take this little jaunt across.
That's right. It'll cut easily half of it off, right? So maybe not quite half. The short loop is 3.3 miles and the long loop is 5.3. So it cuts 2 miles off.
2 miles off. And we were thinking about taking that. And then I was like, well, but we do this for a hiking, we do this for us to get out there, but we also do this to talk about on a hiking podcast. So I felt like we really needed to do the whole 5 miles and but I think that you were thinking in terms of taking that cut through because it was a little bit of a boring trail at the beginning.
I primarily, yes. And also primarily it had been 2 weeks since you and I had been hiking.
Yes.
And so we were in Florida for almost 2 weeks and there's no elevation change in Florida. So I was a little concerned that we were going to be fatigued, after taking that. But, and my feet were kind of achy.
My legs
afterward, but it wasn't too bad. Neither of us brought our hiking poles.
Right.
And I didn't feel the need to have them at all.
The only thing, okay, so at the very beginning of the hike, there's this sign that says, I think I took a picture of the sign, but it says something about a rattlesnake habitat.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, maybe I should have my pole just because what if I run into a snake?
That's an excellent point. Now I do have a knife and a survival kit in my backpack, but I'm not going to get close enough to stab a snake.
I was picturing you, if I get bit by a snake, I was picturing you sucking the venom out for me because
I would. I'd do that for you.
I think you love me that much.
I do. Yeah.
I just don't want to have to go through that experience.
Would you do that for me?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I'm 95% sure.
That is 5% less than I want to hear. That is 5% less than I
would totally do it. I would do it. I would, 100%. Wait,
why are you winking at me right now? Why are your fingers crossed right now? Listeners can't see this, but she's winking with her fingers crossed.
Where did the snake hypothetically bite you?
In a sensitive area.
Okay, we're not going to discuss this further. Right. Yes, so the only other reason that I felt a hiking pole would have been useful was once in a while near water, we wanted to see how deep the water was. But you picked up a stick and put the stick in and we kind of saw.
Yeah, so normally on these trails, the streams are not very deep.
Right.
Like 8 inches, maybe 12. There were a couple spots where it was 18 to 2 feet.
Right.
18 inches to 2 feet. And there was a couple spots, and there's some photos on episode 18 of the trail notes. There's some spots where you could easily get off the trail a little bit, maybe 20 yards, and sit in this wide portion of the trail. And then there was even one spot where there was kind of a little island in the middle of the stream that was
up and had like rocks or sand or
you could easily put 4 or 5 chairs.
Just set up a picnic blanket.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever you have, though, you have to trek in and trek back out. So
yeah,
that's something to consider. But if it's a hot summer day and you want to find some water, there's so many places on this trail that you could
just sit down in it.
If
you wanted to. Yeah. It's interesting because we've passed by this area lots of times when we go to the Blue Ridge.
Yes.
And I never really thought to stop because I was thinking,
I mean, we've stopped at the Cradle of Forestry before, and they have a little walking trail that you can see these historic buildings outside and around the Cradle of Forestry.
Right.
We've done that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in the the Cradle of Forestry review that we do. But yeah, I was constant. I think I made this comment to you all the time. This is one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting trails that we've been on to date, just because of how diverse the plant life and ecosystems are. Like you start out and it's a regular forest floor.
Yes.
And then you get into this lush green fern
forest
wetlands area where there's just green ferns as far as you can see with trees going in and then there's dense thickets of mountain laurels. And then there's these open fields with wildflowers.
Right.
I was constantly in awe on this trail yesterday. And 100% I'm going to do this one again. Maybe in a couple weeks when the mountain laurels start blooming.
So I will say that we went to the left when we started the trail. You can go to the left or to the right, but I think
the trail markers point you left.
Okay.
But you're not going to get arrested if you go to the right. The guy running was going the opposite way.
Yes. So I'm kind of glad that we did go to the left first, because I feel like going to the left first, you get the boring stuff out of the way first, because I felt like it was prettier coming out.
Yeah, the first 3/4 of a mile was fairly unremarkable. And then it was just incredibly interesting. You know, this was also one, there were a number, and this is important for the listeners to know, there were a number of stream crossings that you either had to walk through the stream, or there was a cut log that you had to walk across.
And then,
or a boardwalk.
That one that we had never come across before, where you're walking across the stream in an L shape. It's a corner.
Yeah, the first part of it's a Z shape would probably be a better way of doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, because
a corner.
It's
a corner.
It's 2 turns. Yeah, the first part of it is wooden plank boardwalk, and then it takes a hard right turn, and you're walking on a huge old downed tree.
Yes,
with kind of a rickety handrail.
Yeah, it did not feel
very loose.
It didn't feel super secure.
But this tree is super wide. I mean, it's real wide.
I actually took a picture of my feet on that tree to show how wide.
There is a picture of I grabbed your photo of me crossing it, because normally I like to put photos of you on our trail photos because nobody really wants to look at me and everybody likes to look at you. But there is one of me going on this log, and you'll get a sense of how wide the log is. It's probably 2 feet in diameter.
Yeah, it's still a log, though. It's rounded.
It's rounded, but I don't know. I didn't ever feel like I was unsafe. Right. If the handrail wasn't there, it would have been more sketchy, because it's pretty long. It's probably maybe 10 yards long.
Yeah, but like you said, that handrail was wiggly. If you actually really need that handrail, I am not 100% sure it's going to be there for you.
Yeah, it's pretty rickety. And the stream crossing at that point is pretty wide. It's pretty wide.
Yes.
And then once you get off that, there's another little wooden plank boardwalk that'll take you to the other side of the stream.
Yes. Still, it's narrow.
It is narrow.
Yes.
Yeah. You're not getting a hover around on that. You're not getting...
No.
Huh. And after that, there were a number of other boardwalk areas. There's one long stretch of boardwalk that's going over the wetlands part of it.
Right. So let me address the elephant in the room. There are no benches on this trail, but some of the
Is that the elephant in the room?
It is.
The fact there's no benches is the elephant in the room?
For me, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So... So you can sometimes use these boardwalks as a bench.
Yeah, you can. And also there is at the apex of the loop, there are 3 tree trunks that are cut.
Yes.
That serve as really nice seats actually. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a lot of down trees and stuff. There are no physical benches, but there's plenty of places to sit down.
So these boardwalks that you're talking about, they go over these parts of the trail that I guess are maybe lower or just tend to stay muddy and wet.
It's just a wetland area.
I guess. Yeah. So I will say to the listeners, this trail, I mean, we've been hiking. We started this podcast on Christmas Day in 2023.
Yeah.
We've been hiking almost every week, sometimes twice a week. This trail, I got my hiking shoes more muddy, more dirty, more just mucky. It was
very muddy. It was very, very muddy.
Which doesn't bother me so much because I feel like, let's jump in the puddle or whatever. Yeah. But this was the first time that I ever had took a step in something and I thought, okay, the mud is going to go up over the top edge of my shoe and down into my sock.
Yeah.
That I am not as okay with. So
yeah, and I don't feel like we've gotten a ton of rain in the past few weeks. I think it's just a low mucky area.
certain parts of it. But that again speaks to the diversity of the trail.
Yeah, because some parts are dry as a bone.
Right.
And again, listeners, we're only talking 100-foot elevation change throughout the entire 5.36 mile loop.
Yes.
So that's nothing.
And some of the places that were muddy and mucky, I started looking to the left and to the right to see, are we really close to the stream? Are we really close to water? And no, we weren't.
No, a lot of times we weren't. Yeah.
I couldn't explain it.
There's no denying that it was mucky in some spots. Some spots were dry, but again, yeah, it is a diverse trail.
Yes,
it's so diverse.
I might wear my hiking boots next time because they have a higher.
On this one,
yeah,
I kind of don't disagree with that. And I was gonna say, I want to wear my hiking sandals that I can get in the water. But I don't want mud in my shoes.
Yes, it totally would have been.
Yeah, 100% it would have been. But I do want to get in the streams.
Yes.
There are several parts that are pretty big that you can get in. And you're not going to swim or anything, but you can definitely get knee deep in several spots.
Yes. Yeah. I'm thinking about starting to carry some of those water shoes that are almost like water socks with a little bit more of a, solid bottom to them for maybe rocks inside of streams.
Yeah, because that's the big thing is stepping on rocks and sticks underwater.
I mean, most of the time, rocks in these streams are pretty smooth because that water is running over them but still smoothing them down.
That's hard stuff you're stepping on.
Yes. And if I ever do start carrying those, then I need to have some kind of gallon-sized Ziploc baggie to put my wet shoes in when I put my hiking shoes back on.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff to consider.
So what would you rate this as, Donna? Is this a piece of cake, break a sweat, feel the burn, or pain bringer?
I want to say piece of cake, bar none. I would definitely say piece of cake if you take the short loop, 100%. I actually did break a sweat after 5 miles, but I don't know if that's because A, I am unfit, or B, just the length of it.
I think the length and the humidity yesterday.
It was very humid.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And it started warming up toward the end. I would say piece of cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, especially if you do it real leisurely.
Yes. Which I guess we did.
We were stopped for an hour.
Yeah.
But it was never an hour in one spot. It was just 5 or 10 minutes here because everything was so interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would consider it the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Piece of cake. And if you want to get to this trail, guys, you're going to Google Pink Beds parking area and it'll take you right there. And the trailhead is right there at the end of the parking area. It's kind of tough to miss. There's a photo of the trailhead marker on the episode notes of this show. So
it was well marked. The trail was well marked, I think. Every time.
Orange or red?
So it was orange.
Okay.
There were points where I think there was 1 or 2 points where you looked at your app because you always download the trail on your app. Do we turn left or turn right? But for the most part, not
many.
Yes.
But there was a couple times where the trail, where it was clear somebody had taken. There was another way to go somewhere.
Yes.
Whoever knows where. It wasn't like a full-blown blazed trail, but just a common area where people would walk. And I was like, this doesn't look right. And then the trail that looks too muddy to be the trail. So, but yeah, I mean, if you can follow it, I guess it would be tough to get lost, but.
Also, no mountain bikes, no horseback riding.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. No mountain bikes. And there might have been a no animal sign, but. Rarely is that the case. Though.
Yeah.
Rarely is that the case, but definitely no mountain bikes or motorized vehicles of any kind. Yeah.
Correct.
No
and
ATVs.
At the beginning of the hike, did you notice if there were bathrooms? I didn't notice.
There are no bathrooms there. There are bathrooms at the Cradle Forestry Discovery Center that you can get to without having to pay the admission fee.
Right.
Which is literally right next door.
And it's super nice there.
It is.
Really nice.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the birth of forestry in the U.S.
Yeah. So the historical significance of what the Vanderbilts did in the Cradle of Forestry, what they did was pretty amazing because George and Edith Vanderbilt, of the Biltmore estate.
The Vanderbilts.
The Vanderbilts.
Yep.
Yes. They purchased the land around where the Cradle of Forestry is right now. They purchased that land.
Okay. Which was just mountain and forest land at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. So at that time, the southern Appalachian Mountains were experiencing a major logging boom, but there was no land management or reforestation. There was none of that in place.
We remember logging from the Walker Sisters episode.
Yes.
When those two of the poor sisters had fiancés dying in logging accidents. So we know it was happening right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was such a sad.
That's sad. I'm sorry to bring you down.
Yeah. So the Vanderbilts recognized the need for action, and they enlisted Dr. Carl A. Schenk, a forestry educator from Germany. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing. Did I pronounce that right?
No, I think that's right. It's
Schenck. Yes.
He's a good German man, yeah.
Yeah. So he was...
I will help you with your trees.
Oh my goodness, I so want him to have talked like that.
Yeah, I am Vernon Schenck. I will help you with your trees.
No, he's Carl Schenck.
Carl Schenck.
Yes.
Carl Schenck.
Yes. A forestry educator from Germany to help. So Schenck founded America's first forestry school.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Now, I understand that because you and I had visited the Discovery Center, and there's a lot about him.
Yes.
He was an impressive man in Germany at the time.
Yeah.
He was one of the foremost leaders in sustainable forestry.
Yes.
So for Vanderbilt to go across the ocean to get him is impressive. It shows that he was serious about sustainable forestry.
100%. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, Vanderbilt's got a lot of negatives about him, but we're going to call this a positive.
A very big positive, for sure. Yeah. And so Schenck, the Biltmore Forest School, which is now the home of the Forest Service's Cradle of Forestry historical site.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
Cradle as in like a baby cradle. That's what they refer to it as. Yeah. Like you put a baby in the cradle, that's where they start.
What other cradle is there?
Cats in the Cradle in the Silver Moon.
Silver Spoon?
I don't know. I don't do lyrics very well.
Isn't that still a baby cradle? Cats in the Cradle?
I don't know. I feel like we've gone off topic.
I think we have.
I feel like it's my fault. And I also feel really dumb right now. So I'm going to stop talking.
Okay, but I need you to talk because you actually know more about Carl Schenck because I got distracted.
You got sidetracked on
yes.
your story.
So I need you to talk a little bit about, I think that there was some drama with
There
Carl.
isn't, so yeah. So Carl Schenck started this school.
Yes.
Right there where we were yesterday. Right there in the Pisgah Forest. What is the Pisgah Forest now? Was Biltmore land.
Right. And so I think that the actual school and the places that the people that were going to the school where they slept and everything, I think if you tour the historic houses around
many of the original buildings are there. We're going to talk about that in our review.
Yes.
But yes. So ultimately, here's what happened. Vanderbilt wanted
the best of the best,
a sustainable forest solution here in the United States.
Yes.
He went to Germany, got one of the most renowned forestry professionals there in the world.
Kind of amazing that he came over and, I mean, I guess you throw enough money at something.
You throw enough money, he'll come over.
Yeah.
And so this is in the late 1890s, right? So he came over and started this school. One of the really interesting things about this school, it only started with a handful of students, but tuition was $200 a month. No.
Wait.
$200 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, $200 a year. Harvard at the time was $175 a year.
What?
Yes. So this was a very expensive school.
Elite.
Yeah. So who can afford that? Rich people. So almost all of the students were sons of rich families.
Wow.
Yeah. So also to make matters worse is Schenck was not exactly the most accommodating person. So when students showed up, he basically said, find a place to sleep.
Oh.
And you're on your own.
Okay.
So they had these cabins built out of land there.
Out of like they cut,
out of the
down
logs that were there. Yeah. Uh-huh. And they were called Hellhole, Little Hellhole, Purgatory. They had all these interesting names for these terrible places to sleep. And the school eventually grew, right? And more students. Schenck eventually increased the tuition to $300 a year, and he hired more instructors. And some of the instructors, I mean, you're talking about finance instructors and botanists and arborists and farming instructors and geologists and zoologists, all kinds of, I mean, real high-end professionals. And the course lasted 1 year. And once you graduated from it, you got this forestry diploma. And many of them went on to the newly formed U.S. Department of Forestry. And several of his graduates became the heads of the U.S. Forestry Service.
Wow.
So Schenck is widely regarded as the father of forestry here in the U.S. And he was an exceptionally good teacher. And he did have a beef with Gifford Pinchot, who started out as Vanderbilt's primary groundskeeper, gardener, a more elevated position than that.
There's a lot of grounds to keep.
Yeah.
Around.
I mean, it was a very elevated position. And Pinchot eventually became the head of the Department of Forestry. And him and Schenck had beef where Pinchot tried to get him fired. And Schenck basically responded to Vanderbilt in a letter saying how great he was and how all of his students, went on into forestry and how much better he is than Pinchot. So they had this little beef, but eventually they made up. And Schenck was with the Biltmore School there for years and years and years until it closed down. Vanderbilt eventually closed it down, and then he opened another school in the Appalachian region. So
wow.
So yeah, that's the story of Carl Schenck. If you want to learn all about him, you can go to the Cradle Forestry Visitor Center, and there's a documentary that you can order online. I think it's available for streaming on Vimeo. And if you just search Carl Schenck, Schenck, you can find him. And it's his story is an interesting one about it. So where did you get derailed?
So that all of that stuff would have been great for me to research given the topic that I was tasked with researching, but I got sidetracked by reading about this woman named Edith Dresser.
Was she a forester?
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. So Edith Dresser, Edith Stuyvesant
Mm-hmm.
Dresser. She was born January 17, 1873 in Newport, Rhode Island. Cute little girl. So she had one older brother and 3 sisters. I'm not sure if the sisters were older.
So there were pictures of her?
Yeah.
As a little girl? Okay, so that means that they had money.
Oh, yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. 100%.
Oh, she was adorable.
Yes.
How cute she is. Chubby cheeks.
So, you know how Disney movies usually, like, you'll lose your parent and then you become something great? She lost.
Yeah, you'll become Bambi.
Well, or Cinderella or Snow White or
Pocahontas or anything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Have there been Disney princesses whose mothers have not died?
I can't think of maybe. Well, okay, wait a minute. Rapunzel got stolen from her parents.
Okay.
So her parents were alive, but
now that we're thinking about it, I know we're off on an even bigger tangent now.
Yeah.
Why did Walt Disney hate moms so much?
No,
There's
Walt
something to
Disney,
be said
no,
there.
it's just that think about the biggest, most tragic thing that could happen to you, assuming you have a nice mom. I don't know. It just
That's a tough one. It's a tough one between losing your mom or not being able to eat brownies anymore. That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to come back to that. I'm gonna have to think about that.
All right. But I think rising above it, just
it is a big loss to overcome.
Right.
You're right.
So make it or break it.
Sure.
It will bring the cream to the top. Like you're gonna get refined into gold.
Or broken.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was 10 years old when she lost both her parents.
Both of her
parents. And I looked at, I was trying to find out what they died of, and I can't find it, but I do know that they died separately. Her father died in 1883 and her mother died later that same year.
Oh, God, that's brutal.
So she was 10. I don't know if her sisters were younger or older. She did have an older brother, but so it's 4 girls and 1 boy, and they all lost their parents.
Right.
In 1880.
The family had money,
Mhm.
so at least there was, I'm sure.
She was raised by her maternal grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So she was considered one of the four Dresser girls. They were called the four Dresser girls. She was raised with a rigorous schedule, including study, exercise, music lessons, and prayer, but it still allowed for outdoor time. When they were young adults, Edith and her sisters traveled with their governess. They had a long-time governess. I'm thinking this governess, it said long-time governess in my research, so I'm thinking she was probably their governess from the earliest.
From birth, probably.
Right.
So when they say she was raised by their grandmother, she was raised by their governess.
Yes. And yeah, so they traveled abroad and they eventually settled in Paris. They enjoyed dancing, trips to the countryside, and social activities with friends. She was tall, well-read, and possessed a lively spirit that reflected an ever-present smile.
That is a very nice thing to say about somebody.
Yes. She was thoughtful, caring, and compassionate. Her inner and outer beauty caught George Vanderbilt's attention. It's thought that they were introduced for the first time at Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897.
A common thing that everybody in the United States could have gone to.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Okay. Or like 10 families.
Probably had to get a special invitation.
Yeah.
But yes, it was, I mean, I'm picturing Cinderella, like storybook romance. But
yeah. Do you know how much older he is than her?
I do. He's 11 years older than her.
And how old was she when they met because this might.
24.
Oh, okay.
She's 24.
I mean, 24 and he's 35. Not the worst thing we've heard in the 1800s.
Honestly, in the 1800s, you're 24 and you're not dating anybody. You're not married.
Yeah, you're a spinster.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I get the feeling that she didn't care too much what other people thought about her. I don't know. She just seemed to she was just happy.
Yeah.
She just had a positive energy.
She didn't need no mans.
So after a year of courting, they got married and it was 1898. So she was born in 1873 and he was born in 1862. So he's 11 years older than her. She was 25 when she got married to him and he was 36. They had a 4-month Italian honeymoon.
As everybody did back then. Good Lord. Can you imagine taking a 4-month Italian honeymoon?
I mean, oh my gosh.
Oh, God.
I would think I'd want to get home. Like, what if you had...
And by contrast, what were the Walker sisters doing during this time?
Okay.
They were killing squirrels to make shoelaces.
Yes. Yeah, out of their hides, yes.
Oh, God.
Yes.
The income disparity is insane.
Yeah. So 4-month Italian honeymoon, and then they were like, let's move into the Biltmore house, which was super new at the time because...
Well, didn't he have it built? He had it built for this.
Well, okay, so George became interested in building the Biltmore house after visiting Asheville in 1888 with his mom. Wait, I don't think I have that right. Do I have that right? Maybe. Okay, so construction began in 1889 and was finished in 1895. Oh, and they got married in 1898. Okay, so that's where it was.
Okay, so it was built before they got married.
Right.
Okay.
So he had the house built. It was finished in 1895. He met her in 1897 and they got married in 1898. So I'm wondering if he built this huge, beautiful house and then he was like, you know what? A house is just not a home if you don't have somebody to love, if you don't have,
Okay, that's a very generous way of looking at it. Yeah. I mean, now, for those of you who haven't seen the Biltmore estate, this is probably America's primary castle.
Right.
This is a massive, massive house.
Interestingly enough, it was then and is still now today the largest home that is privately owned.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. When we say castle, we're not exaggerating.
Right.
This place is massive.
Yes.
And it's adorned with George Vanderbilt at the time, I think, was the richest man in the world.
I'm pretty sure, yes.
If not, he was up there. Certainly in America.
Yes.
Yeah.
The world's most eligible bachelor kind of thing.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh.
Everybody was throwing their daughter at this guy.
Probably.
Yeah. I would have. Rachel, if you're listening.
Oh, God. So Edith was perfect for George because he had this intellectual personality. I'm picturing him as being a little bit more maybe of an intellectual, possible introvert. I'm not sure if he was an introvert, but she brought a cheerful energy to the Biltmore estate. She was like, let's invite people over and have parties and, be nice to people. And
so she was you.
And he was you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Without the money.
No, with the money.
We can keep hoping it's going to happen.
People said about Edith, that one would not have known she was the mistress of Biltmore Estate because she was so kind and friendly
and down to earth.
Down to earth, accommodating. She just loved people.
I do remember reading something about her, and you may cover this, and if you do, just you can stop me. She would take clothes from her children and...
Well, no, they only had one child.
Okay, yet she would take clothes that she grew out of.
Yes.
And we're talking the most expensive clothes you can buy at the time.
Probably.
And give them to people in the area.
Right. She was
really
very
great.
charitable, very charitable. So they had one child, Cornelia. She was born in 1900. So Edith was 27 when she had her one and only child, and George was 38. Yes. So Biltmore's employees were important to Edith. She dedicated herself to creating a sense of community while enriching their lives. She founded this school to provide training skills for young Black women in Asheville seeking to enter domestic service.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, look at that. You're showing me a picture now. You'll have to send that to me and I'll put it on the website.
Yes. The Biltmore School of Domestic Science in 1901.
Domestic science.
Right.
Okay. I mean,
you know what?
No. Hey, look, at the time, 1900, that's pretty impressive.
I am still to this day impressed with anybody who puts everything into things like ironing clothes or getting stains out of white stuff. I don't know, like hotels and stuff that...
You got a fancy new clothes steamer this week.
I did.
Yeah. And so you've been putting your all into that.
I have, but I can't say that I have focused on getting all the wrinkles out of my clothes like probably these women.
Oh, no. I mean, what they were putting out was, I'm sure, incredible.
Beyond perfect.
But, I mean, to that point, though, and I joke, but she's giving these women, these African-American women,
a trade.
Real opportunity, right? She could have hired white servants if she needed to. It's not like they were pinching pennies, you know? She's given these people a real opportunity. And from what I've read, working at the Biltmore Estate was like the best job in the country at the time.
The creme de la creme for servants. They had white servants. So she had the Biltmore School of Domestic Science for these young Black women, but I don't know if maybe they hired them. I'm not sure. In 1901, Edith Vanderbilt established the Biltmore School of Domestic Science, which trained young Black women in professional housekeeping. The intention behind this initiative was twofold: to help satisfy the increasing demand for efficient domestic service in the area at that time, and more importantly to Edith, to help women with socioeconomic challenges to become gainfully employed. So, because
we're thinking about this, right? These are going to be the daughters of former slaves.
Oh, yeah.
We are 40, 35 years removed from slavery. So,
and they're still feeling the hate and the, what's it called?
For the next 60 years, they'll still, well, I mean, some would say even now, but yeah, I mean, for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Right. And so they didn't have much money. A lot of them didn't back then. This was a really nice thing that she did.
I mean, it 100% showed, and it showed that she saw humanity for what it is, regardless of skin color. I kind of wonder if she got any kind of pushback from other rich people, other friends. Like, what are you doing?
I would think so. I would think she would have.
But I don't think that she clearly didn't care what people thought.
Good for her.
Yeah. So the coursework at the school covered the duties of a maid, a waitress, laundress, cook, and housekeeper. But if a student showed a preference for a special line of work, she was given the necessary training to develop that skill.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right? So she's not forcing people.
Right.
This is not like
this is what we're offering
training. This is real.
Yeah. What are you
interested in?
Do you like to sew? Do you like to
cook? Do you like to
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty amazing. So also the school created a network to increase its graduates' prospects of finding work.
And she didn't charge for this, from what I understand, right?
Right. I think that's correct.
Yeah, people just applied and she gave the position. That's amazing.
It'd be like winning the lottery.
Yeah, I would think for a lot of these women.
Yeah. So this is a quote from the Home Science magazine from October of 1903 to March of 1904. I don't know. I guess
They probably had they probably had two episodes a year.
Yeah.
Two publications a year.
Mm-hmm. The graduating classes from a society for house workers. The purpose of this society is mutual help by raising the respect of the general public for such work and workers. Any positions that are vacant, if in good families, will be reported and an effort be made to fill them from among the members of the society. So there was some loyalty. She understood about almost like marketing, getting the name out there. Kind of like...
Well, she was doing not only training, but it sounds like job placement.
Actively trying to do the job placement.
Yeah.
Yeah. This would be the equivalent of if you're a rocket scientist and you have a degree from Embry-Riddle, this would be like, oh, I am a cook or housekeeper or maid that I have a degree from the premier house domestic skills school in the country. Biltmore School of Domestic Science.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, can you imagine? I would think that would make you like your shoulders go back a little bit and you hold your head a little bit higher and you're like, see,
especially probably from where a lot of these young women came from.
Yes.
This was a big step up in their life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good for her.
Is a big kindness.
Yeah. Good for her.
So she also set up a program to teach adult...
Before I start liking this lady too much, is there a shoe going to fall?
I couldn't find anything negative about her.
Because I want to like her, but sometimes and at the end she had 19 slaves.
No, nothing like that. Good. No, she's just good.
Just okay.
Yeah.
There are people that we call them unicorns out there like that, back then especially. Yeah.
She's impressive. If I had known about her when I was in school, I would have done a report on her.
Okay.
100%.
All right.
But yeah, she wanted to teach adult literacy skills to their estate employees. So if you worked for her and you couldn't read, she wanted,
wanted to teach how to. That's great.
That's
great.
And
because literacy was very low back then.
Oh,
we're talking 25% in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Late 1800s. Yeah, it was very low.
Mm-hmm. And on top of all that, she also oversaw the daily activities of the household, which, as you can imagine, would.
Yeah. We're not talking about our small 2-bedroom house that we love.
Right.
We're talking, I don't know how many rooms Biltmore has.
I have it.
I think it's like a couple hundred rooms or something like that. It's massive.
I have the size of the house somewhere. Okay. The Biltmore House, America's largest home, spanning 175,000 square feet, which is more than 4 acres of floor space. Now, we're not even talking...
4 acres of floor space. That's a house. A 4-acre sized house.
250 room.
There it is.
French Renaissance chateau. Chateau.
It's bigger than most small cities.
Right. Includes 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms. 35 bedrooms and 43 bathrooms. Indoor plumbing was a new thing back then.
Brand new back then. Most places, well, again, going back to the Walker sisters,
right?
They didn't have it 80 years afterward.
Yeah. 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, and 65 fireplaces.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
enough. That's a lot of wood, though.
It's just enough.
I mean, to heat that place, it would have to take that, but yeah.
Yeah.
They probably created the forestry just to keep their fireplaces going.
We need to plant trees so that we can...
We're dying out here.
Yeah.
We just cleared an acre to warm our house for the next week.
So adjacent to Biltmore House, there's 75 acres of formal and informal gardens. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a massive place.
It's big.
So yeah. So teaching, and so you got to figure she probably had hundreds of people working for her.
Yeah.
Teaching them how to read was no small feat.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing about that I think we really should pay attention to. Every minute that she's teaching them to read is a minute that they're not doing their job. And so she's willing to say, I don't care about the job during this time. I want you to better yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredibly impressive for somebody with all the money in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. 100%. So I don't know if you know this, but George Vanderbilt, he died at the age of 51.
I didn't know that.
In 1940. You did know. Do you know what he died of?
It was not a logging accident.
It was not a logging accident. You're correct.
Know what he died of.
He died from complications from an appendectomy.
In what year?
1914.
Okay. So
1914.
1914 surgery.
Yes.
Guy went in bare hands, just ripping stuff out. Some rusty scissors.
Oh no, I don't think rusty or anything. But I
guess if you had enough money. But
good
still,
Lord, can you imagine being the surgeon doing the surgery on George Vanderbilt?
My hands would be shaking. I'd be constantly shaking.
Oh my God. What if you have to sneeze in the middle of, and you're not wearing a mask, you're not wearing gloves. You don't know about penicillin or germs or whatever. I don't know what you know about in 1914, but you don't
leeches. Lots of leeches.
No, I think that's
leeches and trepanning.
Much earlier. But oh my gosh, I would feel so bad if it's the surgery that I performed on George Vanderbilt and then he died from complication. I don't know how much longer after the surgery that he died, but anyway, that's kind of sad. But so after George died in 1914, she volunteered for the Red Cross. So I'm going to show you this picture.
Did she really?
Yeah, this is so the one in the picture holding the bag. I know the listeners can't. She's got the biggest smile of all of the women in that picture.
She does look happy, and she's clearly doing manual labor there, right?
Yes.
She's cleaning. That looks like a cleaning bucket.
Yeah.
She's the one on the far right?
Holding the bag.
Oh, she's the one. Oh, yeah. She got a big old smile on her face, and that bag looks bloody. I'm not going to lie.
Well, it's a black and white picture.
That bag looks bloody.
I don't know.
What is she?
I don't know what she's volunteering for the Red Cross. That's impressive enough.
Yeah. I don't think it can be overstated. She had all the money in the world.
Yes. And
she didn't have to volunteer for anything.
Right. Yes.
And she's volunteering for a very difficult and dirty job. That's impressive. Yeah. And she does have a big old smile on her face.
The biggest. Yeah. And she continued her husband's effort to create Pisgah National Forest. She became the first female president of the North Carolina Agricultural Society.
Nice.
Yeah. And here's something that she has in common with you and kind of me.
Okay.
She was also into photography.
Was she?
Yes. So the handheld camera was invented in the 1880s. And
I'm sure she had the first ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First and best.
Yeah.
So there are these photographs of Edith Vanderbilt with a camera in her hands in the Biltmore collection of photographs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So there's some really personal, like, picture of George Vanderbilt with their baby. And it's thought that she took those pictures.
Aw.
And
he looks like he doesn't have any clue what to do with that baby.
Yes. He's
looking at this like, when can I put it down?
And then there's this.
We'll put these photos on the website, guys.
Yes.
So you can see them.
There's this note, this handwritten note written by Edith that says, taken and developed and printed without help. She was so proud of the fact that she developed her own pictures back then. So she took pictures and she developed her pictures.
Let me tell you, as somebody who has developed photos, because I was a professional photographer in the Navy.
I've never done that.
It's not easy with modern tools.
Yes.
So back then would have been challenging. Good for her.
I love that, without help.
Without help. She was
she was so proud of herself.
Good for her.
Yes. So
you know what? That's somebody who has humility.
Yes.
And
yes,
in a life experience where you could totally understand humility not being a thing that she would know, but she clearly had it.
Yes.
Yeah. Good
very,
for her.
Very sweet.
Okay, so I'm glad. I'm going to hold off my final judgment to make sure there's no shoe that's going to drop. Like, oh, and she gave money to the Nazi party.
Nope.
I don't want to hear any of that stuff.
No, so George Vanderbilt died in 1914, and then in 1925, when she was 52 years old, she married her second husband, and that was Senator Peter Gerry, Gerry.
She got married again?
Yeah, she got married again in 1925.
Huh.
She was 52.
Yeah, I mean, that's plenty young enough.
And it's a lot. It's 11 years between when her first husband died and she got married again.
That's more than enough grieving period.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she also, took some time to volunteer with the Red Cross and do some
she sounds like she would have been, money aside, it sounds like she would have been a great catch, a great lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she
looked tall too in that photo.
Yeah, she was. She remained committed to Biltmore and their families that worked there, even after she got married to her second husband.
Did he move into Biltmore? He must have felt like he won the lottery. I'm sure he was rich anyway, but not that rich.
There's nothing that says that he moved into Biltmore, and he was the senator of Rhode Island in 1925. And when she died in Rhode Island. She was originally from Rhode Island. Or, no, wait. What did I say? She was born...
Wasn't it New Hampshire, you said?
Hang on.
Something like that?
She was born in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island.
All right.
So, yeah.
So she went back to her home state.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, but she still made sure that Biltmore and the families that worked there, that they were doing all right, that they were good. And she helped to ensure the continuity of the estate until her grandsons were able to take on the responsibility of management.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Why not the daughter, though?
Maybe the daughter wasn't interested?
Yeah, it's possible. Sure.
So there is a picture of her with her daughter, and I didn't actually put that picture in my notes, but it's a picture of Edith, and I believe it's the governor of North Carolina, and then her daughter, and then somebody else, some other political figure.
Was her daughter an adult at this time?
Adult, okay. Yeah, she was 20, and this was I think it was at the, like, christening of, Pisgah Forest, Pisgah National Forest, or something like that. There was a plaque right by them.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. You don't really christen a forest, but
well, I mean, sure.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to break a wine bottle or a champagne bottle over
I don't
a tree,
think so. I'd rather just drink the champagne. But the funny thing about that picture is, so Edith is standing there. She is smiling in every other picture that I've found of her, and she's not really smiling in this one. I don't know if they just caught her wrong or what. Her daughter looks a lot like her, and she's got a big old smile on her. But the funny thing to me is the governor of North Carolina is this next to Edith. Now, she's standing on a little bit higher ground, but he's this short little dude with this really, really angry, stern look on his face. It's comical.
That's funny. Yeah. Maybe that's why she was...
Maybe he's not a pleasant person to be around or something.
She's just like, let's this guy's an ass. Let's just get this over with.
Maybe. I don't know.
I want to get back to nice people.
I'll have to find that picture again. Because he was very, like, his facial
grouchy face.
Holy cow. I don't know if he was having like some digestion problems that day or something. I'm not sure, but he was
he was holding one back.
I don't know.
That's funny. That's funny.
So, yeah.
That's pretty great. So, yeah. So, Edith Stuyvesant Dresser Vanderbilt Jerry.
Yes.
That is a mouthful.
Yes.
But she sounds like a great lady.
Oh, yes. I couldn't find, like, I think the only people who would not have liked her are the uppity rich people that would have been around her and been like, you talk to your servants like they're humans? Kind of those kind of people.
Yeah. Do you want to be friends with those people, though?
No.
I wouldn't want to be.
No.
Yeah. I would say that I'd love to learn more about her.
Yeah.
But I don't want to dig too deep and find something I don't want to find. Hopefully there's nothing.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's nothing. That's great. That's a great story about that. And yeah, you went off task a little bit.
I did.
But that's a much better story than talking about Carl Schenck.
Yeah, Carl Schenck was an interesting
guy. Interesting guy, and
yeah.
started forestry, modern forestry here. The big thing about him was, he wanted sustainable forestry. So
yes.
If you cut down an acre, you plant an acre.
Exactly. And that was a very George Vanderbilt-esque thing. He's all about, him and Edith, and even now, their descendants are very much about sustainability and creating being sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, for all of Vanderbilt's woes, and there are some, without him starting the forestry, the sustainable forestry service, with as bad as logging was back then, we may not have.
That'd be desert.
The Blue Ridge,
rolling desert.
It would just be a mountain range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be another.
Be Colorado.
Rockies. Yeah. Except at least they have the excuse of being up where there's no oxygen, and that's why trees don't grow.
Can't grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's impressive. That's a good story. Thanks, Donna.
Yeah.
So let's take a few minutes to talk about the actual Cradle of Forestry Visitor Center.
All right.
So now that we've heard about Carl Schenck and Vanderbilt and the wonderful little Edith Stuyvesant Dresser Vanderbilt Jerry, let's talk about where you can learn about the actual Cradle of Forestry, the actual beginnings, the birth of forestry here in the U.S. So right next door to the Pink Beds Loop Trail is the actual Cradle of Forestry Visitor Center. And so if you want to find it, guys, the address is 11250 Pisgah Highway. That's Pisgah, Pisgah Forest, North Carolina, 28768. That's the address, the physical address of the visitor center. There is an admission fee to get into the actual Discovery Center to view all the exhibits. It's $8 for adults 13 and up, $4 for children 4 to 12, under 4 is free. And if you're a National Parks pass holder, entry is $4 per person. One of the really neat things about this place, Donna, and you and I have been twice now?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. They have so many exhibits, not only on how the Forestry Service was started and Carl Schenk and all that stuff, but they've got like modern exhibits on the ecology of the area forest, the geology of it. Like there's this really neat thing that you can crawl through to see what's underground there, like the different animals that live underground and the different geology and the different structure of it. You can look at tree roots and stuff like that. It's a really neat area. And then, of course, they have that helicopter simulator that you can sit in. And
it talks about how they
fight the forest fires.
Right, the fires, yes.
Yeah. And, of course, there's exhibits on Carl Schenk and Vanderbilt on how they started the forestry. So it's worth the $8
right.
maximum
and
fee.
When you pay the fee and you go through, then you can get kind of to like a back door. Can you walk through the historic housing area, the path to go through? If I remember correctly, you go out kind of out a back door to
go out a back door and under the road. There's a tunnel that takes you under the road. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to pay for it, but you can. But honestly, guys, it's worth it.
It's worth it to go through the little museum and then do that little walk around.
So the loop that she's talking about, it's a trail that goes underneath the road, underneath the highway, and then it takes you out into this big field with the original buildings that they built for the forestry school.
Yes, and sometimes they have people there that you can ask questions about how things were, how was life back then. And
the interpreters will tell you exactly what it's like.
Mm-hmm. And there was a trading post, kind of trading center.
Yeah, so they had the schoolhouse still there. They had a trading post, and then they had the living buildings, and then there was the kitchen there. The trading post was very interesting to me.
Yes.
Because it was this trading post building built in the late 1800s. It's still the original building. That's where they did their mail. That's also where they bought their food. So the students there had to buy their own food and make their own food. So there were grits that they bought. There was, animal skins that you could use to make winter clothes. There was also,
cigarettes.
Yep. So some of the pictures in the exhibits, you'll see all of the students smoking pipes and stuff like that.
I'm sure they
seem like it's safe for a forest. But...
and I'm probably not filtered cigarettes.
Oh no, they were rolling it themselves, so it wasn't, it was tobacco that they were doing. But yeah, so the trading post has a lot of interesting stuff in it. And there's pictures throughout of it when it was, actually being actively used. And so you just walk along this trail and walk in and tour these buildings, and it's really neat. The buildings that they lived in are so small.
Yeah.
And they were just crammed in there.
I'm thinking, did they take turns sleeping? Or probably not. I don't know.
Some of the pictures show bunk beds.
Okay.
And I think there was a couple buildings that still had bunk beds in them. So I would imagine there was a lot of bunk beds.
And then maybe there were some more buildings than what... There probably were more than what is there now, but
maybe there was. I don't know. They never had a whole lot of students just because of the size of the classroom. They couldn't have had a lot. So I think the most I saw at any one time was 30 students.
Okay.
But I can't even imagine fitting 5 people in those. These are one room barrack areas that these people are sleeping in. It could not have smelled good in there. It could not have smelled good because there was not running water in these places.
Yeah, where is the closest water?
There's a stream that goes right through it.
Is that the stream that we hiked next to?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It goes along to it, but even so, that's gross.
Well, maybe. I mean,
I don't know, but the buildings and the interpreters that are there, they really give you a nice insight of what turn of the century life was like in this brand new field of study. This did not exist before this.
I'm kind of impressed that this existed then, that somebody thought that this was that important that it should exist. That's very enlightened.
they don't really say how much they pay, how much Vanderbilt paid Schenck. I couldn't find anything about it, but it could not have been a small amount of money for him to not only pay Schenck to start to come over and start the school, but also to build the infrastructure for it.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but George Vanderbilt was the grandson of, I believe it's Cornelius Vanderbilt. Well, he was the tycoon. He was the one that made the Vanderbilt money.
Didn't they make it from railroads?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the grandson. So maybe that's why he was able to think in terms of maybe more education and philanthropy. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that. Admittedly, I don't know that much about George Vanderbilt, just the few documentaries over the years that I've watched, but it is an impressive thing to do to start this. He had all this land that he literally could have done whatever he wanted to with it.
Right.
Anything he wanted. And this is a massive tract of land. We're talking many dozens of mountains, right? We're talking hundreds of thousands of acres that he had. And he wanted to keep it forest.
Yeah.
And that's impressive, especially when I'm sure logging was the primary industry back then in that area. So, and he chose to say, you know what? I don't need to make money off logging.
Hunting.
Yeah.
You know, I know this is going to be hard for you to believe, but there have been moments in history where white men have looked at, say, deer, for example, and said, let's kill all the deer and make money off of the deer skins.
That does not sound like something a man would do.
So, yeah, not a Cherokee man, but maybe like a white man might be like, no, it doesn't matter that we don't
One
need.
deer is great. Let's do more.
Yeah, and send them over to England until deer are almost extinct. And then,
what happened to elk in the area?
Yes.
And bison.
Yes.
Bison used to be in this area. Yeah, I know. They got overhunted. Yeah, so the Cradle Forestry Visitor Center is really, it's a fun stop. And there are signs for it on the road going up to the Blue Ridge Parkway on there, on the highway. But it's easy to miss if you don't really try to see it. So you'd recommend people go and check this out.
100%. Even if you are more unfit than us and you can't do hikes and if you're in a wheelchair, still.
Yes, I think this trail is wheelchair accessible.
Well, the museum is for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's tons of parking there, guys.
Yes.
Tons of parking and bathrooms that are open to
But
the
if you
public.
broke your foot and you're on crutches.
Easily make it through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So 100% I'd recommend.
Yeah, I'd recommend it too. So be sure to stop by there, guys. Like I said, it's $8 if you're an adult. If you don't have a national park pass, it's worth it, I think. It's really interesting. They have a ton of exhibits.
Yeah.
So be sure to stop by there. Cradle of Forestry Discovery Center.
I kind of want to go back and do it now. Like, let's just go.
Like today?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now?
Yeah.
I mean, we have podcasts still to record.
Well, it can wait.
You hear her commitment to you, listeners. So that's our episode, guys. We did not decide to do what Donna wanted to do and just run out on the podcast to go visit the Discovery Center. But we're wrapping this one up.
Yeah.
So this week we talked about the Pink Beds Loop Trail, 5.36 miles, very little elevation change, but quite possibly one of the most diverse trails in such a short period that we've been on to date.
Yes. Yes, it was quite wonderful.
It was really great. We also just talked about briefly the beginnings of the Forestry Service here in the U.S., and then we had a really fun fact by Donna about Edith Dresser Vanderbilt Jerry.
You got through it.
A pretty impressive lady.
I'm impressed that you just knew all her names.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call her Edith Vanderbilt.
Yeah, just call her Edith. I bet she wanted people to just call her Edith.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah. A pretty great lady in a time when she could easily have not been a great lady. And we also briefly talked about the Cradle of Forestry Discovery Center. We highly recommend everybody go check it out. $8 for adults, $4 if you have the National Park Pass, which we also recommend getting if you can.
And if you were in the military.
Yeah, if you were in the military, you can get a lifetime park pass very cheaply.
National.
Yeah, a lifetime national park pass very cheaply.
Yeah. So that's something you should do because,
Our national parks are great.
Yeah.
Great Smoky Mountains is just across the Blue Ridge from us.
100%. So yeah, thanks so much for listening. We really want you to subscribe to us in whatever podcast app you use, and we'd love it if you leave us a review. It's how our show grows.
Yes, please leave us a review, especially on iTunes. That's where the podcast analytics mostly generate from on any podcast. So leave us a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like, what we could do better. We always want to improve.
Yeah. So feel free to check out our trail photos at casualclimbers.podbean.com. And if you have a question, comment, or just want to drop us a line, you can reach us at casualclimberspodcast@gmail.com. So
Donna, I'm thinking before we wrap up here, what do you think the worst thing Edith could have done back then? Because I still want to believe that she was as great as you say.
Worst thing?
Kicked a puppy?
Oh, gosh, no. I don't think that she would ever kicked a puppy.
She wouldn't?
No.
You're kind of a kindred spirit with her. Like, you see the best in people, like it sounds like Edith saw the best in people.
Oh, I think she was probably a better person than me.
I don't know if that's possible.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Yeah. Oh, also, last thing for the listeners, I did do some Sasquatch knocks on trees yesterday, and we didn't see any.
No.
It's very sad.
We did see some downed trees, though. There were some downed trees.
Lots of downed trees.
Maybe a Sasquatch pushed a tree over. That might have been evidence.
I'm going to choose to believe that's true.
Okay.
All right. So watch out for squatches, guys.
Yep.
See you out on the trails.